A former slot technician just revealed something casinos have been trying to keep quiet for years. And what he's about to expose could completely change how you approach slot machines. This isn't coming from some random player or gambling enthusiast. This is documented information from someone who spent over a decade programming, maintaining, and analyzing the performance data of slot machines across multiple casino properties. And according to internal reports he's seen, there are exactly 8 slot machines that casinos absolutely hate seeing informed players discover, and 2 machines they desperately want you playing instead. What I am about to share comes from internal data that casinos don't want publicized, conversations with multiple former floor managers, and documentation that reveals exactly which machines give players the best mathematical advantage and which ones are designed to extract maximum profit. Here's what makes this information so valuable. Casinos don't just randomly place slot machines on their floors. Every single placement decision, every machine selection, every denomination offering is based on extensive performance data and psychological research. And when a machine consistently underperforms from the casino's perspective, meaning players are winning too often or losing too slowly, that machine gets moved to terrible locations, hidden in corners, or sometimes removed from the floor entirely. Machine number 3 on our list is so mathematically favorable that one major casino chain actually pulled it from their main gaming floor after 6 months of negative performance reports. But we'll get to that story in a moment, because right now I need to tell you about the 2 machines that have the highest documented return to player percentages in the entire industry. Machine number 1, Mega Joker. According to technical documentation and reports from former slot technicians, this NetEnt game has a return to player percentage of 99% when played in Super Meter mode. That's not a typo. 99%. For context, most slot machines on casino floors operate between 85 and 92% return to player, meaning the house edge is roughly 8 to 15%. Mega Joker's house edge, when played correctly, is only 1%. That's better than most table games. Here's what former technicians report happens with this machine. Casinos that carry Mega Joker almost always place it in low traffic areas, tucked into corners or in sections of the floor where casual players won't stumble across it. One former floor manager described it as the machine they hoped players wouldn't discover, because once someone understands how the Super Meter mode works, they can extend their bankroll almost indefinitely. Let me tell you about Michael. He's a regular player at a mid-sized casino in the Midwest who discovered Mega Joker purely by accident. He'd been walking through a back section near the restrooms when he noticed this simple-looking three-reel game. Something about the classic design appealed to him, so he sat down with $50. Within the first 20 minutes, he noticed something unusual. When he moved his winnings into Super Meter mode and kept his bets consistent, his balance barely moved. He wasn't winning big, but he wasn't losing either. Over the next 3 months, according to documentation from casino hosts who track regular players, Michael came in twice a week and played almost exclusively on Mega Joker. His total win-loss over that period was up $400 on roughly 60 hours of play. That might not sound impressive until you realize he should have mathematically lost somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 playing any normal slot machine for that duration. Here's what happened next. The casino moved Mega Joker. First time, they relocated it to an even more remote corner of the floor. Michael found it. Second time, they moved it to a high-limit room that required players to bet minimum $5 per spin instead of the quarter denominations Michael had been playing. He stopped playing it. The math is too favorable when played correctly, and casinos know it. But here's the psychological trap that protects casinos. Most players who sit down at Mega Joker never figure out that they need to consistently play in Super Meter mode to access that 99% return to player. In base game mode, the return drops to roughly 85%, which is actually below average. So casual players try it, don't understand the strategy, lose money at normal rates, and move on. But if you think 99% is good, wait until you hear about machine number 5's story. Because that one involves a couple who got so good at exploiting a high return machine that the casino eventually asked them to leave. Machine number 2, bloodsuckers. Before we get to machine number 3, I need to tell you about what might be the single most avoided slot machine in modern casino history. This NetEnt game has a return to player percentage of 98%. That's not a marketing claim or theoretical maximum. That's the documented, verified return percentage that's maintained across all play modes. And according to former floor managers I've spoken with, this is the machine that casinos will do almost anything to keep players away from. Bloodsuckers doesn't require special modes or strategy to access its high return percentage. Unlike Mega Joker, where you need to understand Super Meter mode, Bloodsuckers gives you that 98% return just by playing normally. That makes it extraordinarily dangerous from the casino's perspective, because casual players can stumble into favorable mathematics without even realizing it. Former technicians report that this game consistently appears on monthly performance reports as one of the lowest earning machines per square foot of floor space. One analyst described it as the machine they wished NetEnt had never created. Here's what makes bloodsuckers particularly problematic for casino operations. The bonus round hits frequently enough to keep players engaged, but not so frequently that it triggers the kind of winning streaks that would make the game obviously beatable. It's steady, it's reliable, it grinds away at the casino's edge rather than the player's bankroll. According to documentation from surveillance teams, informed players who discover this machine can play for 6, 8, sometimes 10 hours with minimal bankroll decline. That's the exact opposite of what casinos need to generate profit. Let me tell you about Jennifer. She's a nurse in her early 40s who works night shifts and occasionally stops at a local casino on her way home to unwind. She discovered bloodsuckers completely by accident when the machine she usually played was occupied. According to casino host records that track player activity, Jennifer played bloodsuckers twice a week for about 4 months. Her total documented loss over that period was approximately $200 on roughly 50 hours of play. To put that in perspective, the same amount of play on a typical slot machine should have cost her somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 in losses. Here's what happened when the casino noticed her pattern. First, they moved bloodsuckers to a section of the floor near the high limit room, far from Jennifer's usual parking entrance. She found it again within 2 weeks. Second, they reduced the number of bloodsuckers machines from 3 down to 1 and placed that single machine in the worst possible location, tucked behind a pillar near the back restrooms. Jennifer kept playing it. Third, and this is where it gets particularly revealing, a floor supervisor approached her during one session and enthusiastically recommended she try some of the newer video slots they'd just installed. The supervisor specifically mentioned Buffalo and Wheel of Fortune, describing them as more exciting and with bigger jackpot potential. That recommendation wasn't hospitality. That was damage control. What former employees reveal about bloodsuckers is that many major casino chains simply don't carry it anymore. Properties that do have it keep machine counts minimal, place them in terrible locations, and actively steer players toward other options. One former marketing director admitted during research conversations that there were internal discussions about whether the promotional value of appearing to offer high-return games was worth the actual cost of having those games on the floor. For bloodsuckers, many casinos decided it wasn't. The game is too straightforward, too consistently favorable, too difficult to hide behind complex features or strategy requirements that protect other high-return machines. The vampire theme actually works against players discovering this machine. Many gamblers, particularly older players who represent casinos' most profitable demographic, avoid horror-themed games entirely. They gravitate toward recognizable brands like Wheel of Fortune or familiar themes like Buffalo. The dark, somewhat campy vampire aesthetic of bloodsuckers makes it unappealing to the exact players who would benefit most from its mathematics. Former floor staff report that this theming is actually seen as a protective factor. The game has terrible optics that keep casual players away, which means the casino can technically offer it while knowing it will generate minimal play volume. But here's what you need to understand about bloodsuckers if you ever find it. That 98% return is real, but it still means the house has a 2% edge. You're not going to beat this machine. What you're going to do, if you play it correctly with proper bankroll management, is lose your money much more slowly than you would on almost any other slot machine in the casino. For recreational players who are going to gamble regardless of the mathematics, that difference matters. It's the difference between 50 hours of entertainment for $500 versus 5 hours of entertainment for $500. The money still goes to the casino eventually, but at least you're not being actively predated upon by some of the most manipulative designs in the industry. Machine number 3, 1429. Uncharted Seas. This is the machine I mentioned that one casino actually removed from their main floor. And when you understand why, you'll see exactly how casinos respond when the math works too much in the player's favor. This Thunderkick game has a documented return to player percentage of 98.6%, which puts it firmly in the territory of machines that make casino management nervous. But what makes 1429 Uncharted Seas particularly problematic from the casino's perspective isn't just the high return to player. It's the combination of that high percentage with relatively low volatility and a feature that hits frequently enough to keep players engaged without the devastating cold streaks that normally drain bankrolls. Here's what the technical specs show. The game has expanding wilds that can cover entire reels, and according to former floor managers who tracked the machine performance data, these wilds trigger often enough that informed players can maintain their bankrolls for extended sessions. One former analyst described reviewing monthly performance reports and consistently seeing 14 out of 29 Uncharted Seas flagged as underperforming. Not because the machine was broken or malfunctioning, but because players were winning too frequently relative to time spent playing. In casino mathematics, a successful machine needs to extract profit at a certain rate per hour. When a machine fails to hit those benchmarks month after month, it gets moved or removed. Let me tell you about what happened in Las Vegas about 3 years ago. A group of advantage players, people who specifically research and target games with favorable mathematics, identified 1429 Uncharted Seas as one of the best slot machines available in terms of pure return to player, combined with manageable volatility. According to documentation from a former security staff, this group systematically played this machine across multiple properties on the Strip. They weren't doing anything illegal. They weren't manipulating the machines or cheating in any way. They were simply playing a game that had publicly available mathematics that worked in their favor when played with proper bankroll management. Within 4 months, at least one major casino property moved their 1429 Uncharted Seas machines from the main floor to a back section near the sportsbook where casual foot traffic was minimal. Another property reportedly removed the game entirely. The expanding wilds are what make this machine so player-friendly. When those wilds hit and cover full reels, you're looking at multiple winning combinations on a single spin. Former technicians report that the frequency of these expanding wilds, combined with the base game hit rate, means players can often play for an hour or more without seeing significant bankroll decline. That's exactly what casinos don't want. They need volatility. They need those swings that get players emotionally invested in chasing losses. 14 out of 29. Uncharted Seas is too steady, too reliable, too mathematically fair. Many casinos either don't carry it anymore, or if they do, you'll find it in the worst possible locations. Now, you might be wondering if there are any classic mechanical style slots with high return to player percentages, because everything I've mentioned so far has been video slots with modern graphics and features. Before I reveal machine number 4, I need to ask you to hit that subscribe button. This information comes from years of insider contacts, former employees who've shared internal reports and documentation that casinos absolutely do not want widely publicized. Your support helps me continue bringing you what casinos don't want you knowing. And drop a comment and let me know, have you ever played any of these high return to player machines without knowing it? Did you notice anything different about how they performed compared to typical slots? Machine number 4, Jackpot 6000. Here's a classic style slot that former technicians say casinos actually track player performance on, and there's a specific reason why. This NetEnt game looks like something you'd find in a casino 30 years ago. 3 reels, simple symbols, mechanical style design. Nothing fancy, nothing modern, nothing that would typically attract attention from players who are used to elaborate video slots with multiple features and stunning graphics. But that simple appearance hides something that makes casino management extremely uncomfortable. When played in supermeter mode, Jackpot 6000 has a return to player percentage of 98.9%. That puts it right at the top of the list for legitimately available casino games. Why is this machine problematic for casinos? The simplicity. There are no flashy animations to distract you. There are no elaborate bonus rounds that create the illusion of control. There are no multiple features competing for your attention. When you sit down at Jackpot 6000, you're looking at a straightforward 3-reel slot machine, and that simplicity means informed players can't be psychologically manipulated the way they can on modern video slots. Former employees report that educated players who discover this machine and understand the supermeter strategy can exploit that 98.9% return for hours of play with minimal losses. One former casino host, I'll call him Robert, admitted in a conversation that became part of this research that floor staff were specifically instructed to offer comps and free drinks to players who spent extended time on Jackpot 6000. The goal wasn't hospitality, the goal was distraction. Get them drinking, get them talking to cocktail servers, get them away from optimal play strategy. Here's what internal reports allegedly show. In markets where players are educated about return to player percentages and optimal slot strategy, particularly in Northern Europe where gambling education is more common, Jackpot 6000 consistently underperforms casino expectations. The machine makes money because the house still has an edge even at 98.9%, but it makes money too slowly. Casino floors are expensive real estate. Every square foot needs to generate a certain amount of revenue per hour, and when a machine like Jackpot 6000 occupies that space but only extracts profit at a fraction of the rate of surrounding games, it becomes a problem. The catch that protects casinos is the same as with Mega Joker. Most players don't stay in supermeter mode long enough to realize the high return to player percentage. They play base game, they don't understand the strategy, they lose at normal rates. But for the small percentage of informed players who do understand, this machine is remarkably favorable. And if you think casinos dislike these classic-style high-return games, wait until you hear about the story behind machine number 5. The next machine we're covering has a story that's almost hard to believe, involving a couple who played it so successfully that the casino eventually had to intervene. But first, I need to warn you, we're about to get into the 2 machines casinos absolutely love seeing you play. One of these machines is so profitable for casinos that they actually give players free plays on it as promotional offers, knowing that those free plays will lead to devastating losses. Machine number 9's story is going to shock you because it involves a woman who lost money that was supposed to pay for medical treatment. Machine number 5. Ooh, Dracula. This is the machine with that story that's almost hard to believe. And when you understand what happened, you'll see exactly how far casinos will go when players discover games that work too much in their favor. This Barcrest game has a return to player percentage of 99% when you activate the Big Bet feature. According to technical documentation from former slot directors, this machine was quietly pulled from several major casino chains after what they described internally as suspicious winning patterns. But there was nothing suspicious about it. The math was just too good. Here's how Dracula works. In normal play mode, it's a decent slot with medium volatility and vampire-themed graphics. Nothing special. But when you activate big bet mode, which requires wagering larger amounts per spin, the return to player percentage jumps to 99%. That means for every $100 you wager over the long term, you should theoretically get $99 back. The house edge drops to just 1%. When played with proper bankroll management, informed players can extend their money almost indefinitely. Former employees report that this machine started appearing on internal watch lists within months of installation at properties where educated players discovered it. Let me tell you about David and Michelle. They're a married couple in their mid-40s who both work in technical fields and approach gambling mathematically rather than emotionally. According to documentation that came from casino host reports and surveillance notes, they spent roughly 3 months researching high return-to-player machines before their first casino visit. They identified Ooh Ah Dracula as having one of the best combinations of high return and manageable volatility available. They set a strict bankroll management system. They only played in big bet mode. They tracked every session in a spreadsheet. Over a 6-month period, they visited the same regional casino property 2 to 3 times per week. They played almost exclusively on Ooh Ah Dracula. Their documented results showed consistent small wins. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would individually trigger attention. But month after month, they were grinding out profits. Here's what happened next, according to former floor staff who were involved. After about 4 months, casino management started noticing their pattern. They weren't doing anything wrong. They weren't counting cards or manipulating machines or engaging in any form of advantage play that violated casino rules. They were simply playing a legitimately available slot machine that had publicly documented mathematics. But their consistent winning, even though the amounts were relatively small, triggered internal discussions. Surveillance reviewed their play. Hosts documented their sessions. Analysts pulled performance data on the specific machine they preferred. Eventually, according to reports, a casino manager approached them during one of their visits and politely asked if they would consider diversifying their play to include other games. The implication was clear. Keep playing only Ooh Ah Dracula and you might face exclusion. The casino couldn't prove advantage play, but they didn't need to. Casinos reserve the right to exclude anyone for any reason. Why do casinos hate this machine so much? When played with the big bet feature activated, the math is nearly even. Think about what that means. A knowledgeable player with decent bankroll management can play for hours, sometimes days, with minimal net loss. They're occupying a machine that could be generating 10 times more profit if a recreational player was sitting there instead. They're taking up floor space that costs the casino money to maintain. They're essentially getting free entertainment at near break-even odds. But here's the dark secret that former employees revealed. Casinos know that most players will never figure out the big bet requirement. They'll play normal mode, see decent but not spectacular results, and move on. The 99% return to player is technically available but effectively hidden behind a feature that requires larger wagers and knowledge that most casual players don't have. So the machine stays on the floor to appear player-friendly, while 90% of the people playing it never access the high return percentage. Now, if you're thinking these NetEnt and Barcrest games are hard to find, you're right. Many casinos don't carry them, or they place them in terrible locations specifically to discourage play. But machine number 6 is different. This one is widely available, and there's a specific reason casinos tolerate it despite its legitimately high return-to-player percentage. This is one of the few high-return machines that's widely available, and here's why casinos tolerate it. Machine number 6, Starmania. Now, if you're thinking these NetEnt and Barcrest games are hard to find, you're absolutely right. Many casinos don't carry them, or they place them in terrible locations specifically to discourage play. But machine number 6 is different. This one is widely available, and there's a specific reason casinos tolerate it, despite its legitimately high return to player percentage. Starmania, this next-gen gaming slot, has a documented return to player percentage of 97.87%. That puts it firmly in the territory of games that should make casino management nervous. But unlike the other machines we've discussed, Starmania appears in decent locations, gets promoted in casino marketing materials, and remains widely available across multiple properties. When you understand why, you'll see exactly how casinos can offer high return games without actually giving up their profit margins. The secret is in the volatility. Starmania has extreme variance, meaning the wins are distributed in massive swings rather than steady, consistent returns. According to former analysts who reviewed performance data, this machine has long cold streaks that absolutely devastate player bankrolls before the bonus features hit. That 97.87% return to player is mathematically accurate over millions of spins. But for individual players in individual sessions, the volatility makes it nearly impossible to survive long enough to benefit from those theoretical mathematics. One former floor manager described it as a high return trap. The math looks good on paper, but the playing experience destroys recreational gamblers. Here's how the trap works. Starmania has expanding wilds that can cover entire reels, and when those wilds hit during the free spins bonus, you're looking at massive potential payouts. Former employees report that this machine regularly produces wins of 50 times, 100 times, sometimes 200 times the triggering bet. Those big wins are spectacular. They create exactly the kind of dopamine rush and winning memory that brings players back. But what the win frequency statistics show is devastating. According to technical documentation, players typically go through 200 to 400 spins between bonus triggers. At $1 per spin, that's $200 to $400 in losses before you get a chance at that big win. And when the bonus finally hits, it often pays out $75 or $80. You've lost $300 chasing a $75 bonus win. Let me tell you about Marcus. He's a software developer in his early 30s who researched high return to player percentages and specifically targeted machines like Starmania. He understood the mathematics, or thought he did. According to his own documented records that he shared during research for this video, he played Starmania across 8 sessions over 2 months. His total wagered was approximately $12,000. Based on the 97.87% return, he should have theoretically lost about $255. His actual documented loss was $2,800. What happened? Variance destroyed him before the long-term mathematics could level out. Marcus hit the bonus round several times. One bonus paid out $900, another paid $150. Most paid between $50 and $200. But the cost of reaching those bonuses, combined with the extended cold streaks between features, meant he was consistently bleeding money, despite occasionally hitting decent wins. He made a critical mistake that former casino employees say they see constantly with high-return, high-volatility games. He assumed that the return-to-player percentage would manifest in his individual playing sessions. The reality is that 97.87% return requires sample sizes of tens of millions of spins. His 8 sessions represented maybe 3,000 total spins. In terms of statistical probability, he hadn't even begun to approach the sample size where theoretical return becomes reliable. Here's what multiple former employees revealed about why casinos love Starmania despite its high return percentage. It attracts informed players who've done research. These players see 97.87% return and think they've found an edge. They sit down with confidence, believing they're playing smart. But the extreme volatility combined with insufficient bankroll depth for the variance means these supposedly informed players lose money at rates that rival or exceed casual gamblers on lower return machines. One former analyst described reviewing quarterly reports and consistently seeing Starmania outperform casino profit expectations despite its theoretical return percentage. The game was making money specifically because players who should know better were being destroyed by volatility they didn't properly account for. The placement strategy reveals everything. Unlike Bloodsuckers or Mega Joker, which get hidden in terrible locations, Starmania appears in perfectly reasonable floor positions. Not premium real estate like Wheel of Fortune or Buffalo, but decent mid-floor locations with good visibility and traffic flow. Casinos aren't afraid of this machine because they know the volatility protects their profit margins. They can advertise it as a high-return game, they can promote it to players who are researching return percentages, and they can watch those informed players get destroyed by variance while technically offering mathematics that appear player-friendly. Former slot directors report that games like Starmania are actually celebrated internally as the perfect compromise. High enough return percentage to appear legitimate and attract knowledgeable players. High enough volatility to ensure those players lose money at acceptable rates before the theoretical mathematics can help them. It's a game that lets casinos have it both ways. They get to claim they offer player-friendly options while still extracting maximum profit from the people who choose those options. And the cruel irony is that players who specifically seek out high-return games because they understand gambling mathematics are the exact players most likely to be destroyed by underestimating variance on machines like Starmania. This is the lesson former employees most wanted to emphasize. Return to player percentage is important, but it's only one part of the equation. Volatility matters just as much, maybe more, for recreational players with limited bankrolls. A 97.87% return game with extreme variance can destroy your bankroll faster than a 92% return game with low volatility, because you simply won't survive long enough for the better mathematics to matter. Casinos understand this perfectly. They know exactly which high-return games they can safely offer because volatility protects their profit margins. And they know that most players who research return percentages don't also research volatility metrics. That knowledge gap is worth millions of dollars in casino profit every single year. Machine number 7, Goblin's Cave. Before we get to those two machines casinos love, there's one more high-return game that has an almost mythical status among people who understand slot mathematics. And when you hear why it's nearly impossible to find anymore, you'll understand exactly how casinos respond when a machine gives players too much control. This Playtech game has a documented return-to-player percentage of 99.32%. That's not just high, that's extraordinary. Former technicians who worked with this machine describe it as the holy grail of slot return percentages, a game that somehow made it past casino approval processes, despite mathematics that are almost impossibly favorable to players. Here's what makes Goblin's Cave different from everything else we've discussed. It has a unique hold feature where you can actually choose which reels to hold and which to spin again. That's not a cosmetic feature. That's not just visual feedback to create illusion of control. That's actual control that affects outcomes. When you add player decision-making to a 99.32% return, you've created something that approaches beatable in the right hands. Documentation suggests that Playtech eventually discontinued this game, and casinos that still have it keep it in the most remote locations possible or have removed it entirely. One former floor manager described it as a mistake that the industry learned from. The combination of high return and skill element made it too exploitable. Let me tell you about Thomas. He's what's known in gambling circles as an advantage player, someone who specifically seeks out games with mathematical edges and exploits them legally and systematically. According to documentation from his own records, Thomas spent months researching Goblin's Cave after reading about its exceptional return to player percentage. He traveled to 3 different states specifically looking for this machine. Most casinos he visited didn't have it. Some had heard of it but removed it years ago. Eventually he found one. A small tribal casino in Oklahoma had a single Goblin's Cave machine tucked in a corner near their poker room. Thomas documented everything. He played for 2 weeks, roughly 6 hours per day. He learned the optimal hold strategy. He tracked every spin, every decision, every result. His final documented profit over approximately 80 hours of play was 4% of total amount wagered. That might not sound impressive until you realize he was playing a slot machine, a game type that's supposed to guarantee the house a mathematical edge. When Thomas returned 2 months later planning another session, the machine was gone. He asked a floor supervisor what happened to it. The response, according to his documentation, was that they were rotating their slot offerings. But former employees from similar properties tell a different story. When a machine consistently shows poor performance metrics, when surveillance notices the same player returning specifically for that machine, when session data shows someone playing optimal strategy for extended periods, that machine gets removed. It doesn't matter that the player isn't cheating. It doesn't matter that the mathematics are legitimately part of the game's design. Casinos are private businesses that can choose which games to offer, and they choose not to offer games that informed players can beat. Here's what a former slot director admitted about Goblin's Cave during research for this video. He called it a mistake. The skill element combined with the high return made it too beatable by informed players. Unlike pure chance games where the house edge grinds away regardless of player knowledge, Goblin's Cave required active bad decisions to generate casino profit. A player making optimal choices could essentially play at near break even indefinitely. That's unacceptable from a casino floor management perspective. Every square foot of casino space needs to generate certain revenue per hour. A machine that allows skilled play at 99.32% return fails that requirement. Industry insiders estimate there are fewer than 50 of these machines still operating in the United States. If you find one, consider it a mathematical unicorn. But understand that if you play it well, if you document consistent winning sessions, you're putting that machine at risk of removal. Now, I need to shift gears completely. Everything we've covered so far, those are machines casinos dislike. Those are games with mathematics that work too much in the player's favor. What comes next is the opposite. What I'm about to reveal isn't just about low return to player percentages. These are machines casinos use as psychological weapons. One of these machines is marketed as player-friendly, branded with a name everyone recognizes and trusts, and that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Machine number 10's internal profitability reports will genuinely shock you. Machine number 8, White Rabbit. This is the last genuine high-return machine on our list. And there's a specific reason I'm covering it here, because it represents something insidious about how modern slot design weaponizes player psychology even when the mathematics are theoretically favorable. This big-time gaming slot has a documented return-to-player percentage of 97.77%. That's legitimately high. That should make it player-friendly. But former employees say this machine is strategically placed because it creates the perfect psychological trap. And when you understand how, you'll see why casinos don't just tolerate it, they actively promote it. White Rabbit uses the mega ways mechanic, which creates thousands of potential winning combinations and gives players the feeling of near constant action. But the feature that makes this machine so profitable for casinos, despite its high return percentage, is the feature buy option. You can pay to instantly trigger the bonus round rather than waiting for it to hit organically. That sounds like player empowerment. That sounds like giving you control. But internal data shows that players who buy features consistently lose more than those who play organically. Former analysts report that machines with feature buy options show hold percentages 3 to 5% higher than their stated return to player because of player behavior. Let me explain what that means. The return to player percentage of 97.77 is calculated based on optimal play over millions of spins. But buying features costs 100 times your base bet. When players repeatedly buy into bonus rounds, they're essentially fast-forwarding through their bankroll at accelerated rates. The volatility destroys them. Let me tell you about Eric. He's a player in his early 30s who discovered White Rabbit's high return to player percentage through online research. He thought he'd found an edge. He understood mathematics, or thought he did. Over 6 months, according to his own documented records, he bought the bonus feature over 300 times across multiple sessions. He tracked everything in spreadsheets. He calculated the theoretical return. He believed he was playing smart. His final result was down 18% despite the 97.77% return claim. What happened? Buying features cost 100 times the bet, and variance destroyed his bankroll before the long-term mathematics could level out. He spent 6 months basically paying $100 per spin to watch bonus rounds that sometimes paid $30, sometimes $300, occasionally paid $2,000, but averaged out to devastating losses because he couldn't survive the variance. According to reports from analysts who track this data, machines with feature buy options are casino gold. They attract informed players who think they're being smart. They create the illusion of control and player agency. But the mathematics of buying features at 100 times base bet, combined with the extreme volatility of modern megaways slots, means recreational players almost never have the bankroll depth to survive long enough for the theoretical return percentage to matter. This machine technically has a high return to player, but casinos love it because they know players will misuse the feature buy option. And this brings us to the two machines casinos absolutely love seeing you play. These are machines they actively promote, machines they place in premium locations, machines they want you to find. These are machines designed not just to have low return percentages, but to psychologically manipulate players into extended sessions that generate maximum profit. Machine number 9, Wheel of Fortune. This is the machine that a former floor manager said generates more profit per square foot than almost any other slot on the casino floor. And when you understand why, you'll see exactly how casinos weaponize brand recognition and player trust to extract maximum revenue. According to internal reports from multiple former employees, this IGT machine has a return to player percentage that varies between 88 and 92%, depending on denomination and specific casino configuration. But the return percentage is almost irrelevant compared to what this machine does psychologically. This is a game that combines low mathematics with extremely high volatility and massive progressive jackpots, creating the perfect storm of player manipulation. Here's what multiple former employees revealed about why casinos love Wheel of Fortune so much. It has brand recognition that no other slot machine can match. When people walk into a casino, even people who don't normally gamble, they recognize Wheel of Fortune from the television show. There's automatic trust built into that brand. Players assume that a game based on a beloved television program must be legitimate, must be fair, must give them a reasonable chance to win. That assumption is exactly what makes this machine so profitable. Former marketing directors admitted during research that brand partnerships like Wheel of Fortune are chosen specifically because players trust established names and assume they're more legitimate than generic slot titles. The brand does psychological heavy lifting that no amount of flashy graphics or sound design could accomplish on its own. The placement strategy tells you everything you need to know. Walk into any major casino property and look for Wheel of Fortune machines. You'll find them in premium, high-visibility locations, near entrances where they're the first thing players see, in center floor positions with theatrical lighting and sound, often in banks of 6 or 8 machines all playing synchronized music and celebration sounds. Casinos don't hide Wheel of Fortune. They showcase it. They want you to play it. That should immediately tell you the mathematics work heavily in the house's favor. Let me tell you about Patricia. She's a 67-year-old retiree who became obsessed with Wheel of Fortune after witnessing someone win a progressive jackpot during one of her casino visits. According to documentation from former hosts who tracked her play, she started visiting the casino 3 to 4 times per week, almost exclusively playing this machine. Over 18 months, she lost approximately $45,000. Most of that loss came from quarter denomination Wheel of Fortune, which typically has the worst return percentage of any configuration. Here's the cruel detail that makes this story particularly heartbreaking. Patricia never knew about return to player percentages. She never understood that her denomination choice had the worst mathematics available. She believed the brand name meant better odds. She thought a game associated with a family-friendly television show wouldn't be designed to extract money so efficiently. Former hosts who interacted with her reported that she would tell stories about the wheel spin bonus, about near misses on the jackpot, about times she almost hit the big win. The psychological manipulation was working exactly as designed. The wheel spin bonus creates massive dopamine spikes, even though it's mathematically just another random number generator event. When that wheel starts spinning, when the camera zooms in, when the sound effects build, players experience excitement that has nothing to do with actual odds or legitimate winning chances. One former employee described a monthly meeting where Wheel of Fortune's performance was celebrated. According to his account, the machine had won the casino over $200,000 that month from their location alone. Management reviewed which denominations performed best, which locations generated most play, which promotional strategies drove traffic to those machines. There was discussion of player reinvestment rates, meaning how often players who won would immediately put winnings back into the same machine. Reports allegedly show that Wheel of Fortune players have lower gambling literacy on average and higher loss limits than players who gravitate toward other game types. This isn't coincidental. This is the result of deliberate design and marketing choices that target players based on brand trust rather than mathematical understanding. And if you think Wheel of Fortune is bad, machine number 10 takes casino profitability to an entirely different level. Machine number 10, Buffalo. This is it. The machine multiple former employees independently named as their most profitable game. According to internal reports from analysts who tracked performance data, Buffalo generates 20 to 30% more revenue than the casino floor average. This aristocrat game has a return to player percentage between 85 and 90% depending on configuration, combined with extreme volatility and the extra real power system that creates near constant engagement despite devastating long-term mathematics. Casinos don't just tolerate Buffalo, they celebrate it. They dedicate entire sections of their floor to it. They create Buffalo lounges with premium seating and enhanced sound systems. They want you playing this machine more than almost any other game they offer. The placement strategy is even more aggressive than Wheel of Fortune. Walk through any major casino and you'll find Buffalo machines in premium locations. Often there are entire banks of 10 or 15 machines, all playing synchronized sound effects, all creating an environment of excitement and near constant winning celebration sounds. Former employees report that Buffalo variants, Buffalo Gold, Buffalo Diamond, Buffalo Grand, Buffalo Stampede, are specifically designed to make players think they're trying different games when the mathematics are equally terrible across all versions. Casinos love that players treat these as separate experiences rather than recognizing they're all the same exploitative design with different cosmetic elements. Let me tell you about James and Carol. They're a married couple in their early 60s who faced a devastating situation that reveals exactly how dangerous machines like Buffalo can be. James was diagnosed with cancer. They had approximately $80,000 in savings set aside for treatment. Carol started visiting the casino during stressful periods to clear her head, to escape the anxiety of medical appointments and treatment planning. She gravitated toward Buffalo because of the exciting sounds and frequent near misses. The extra real power system creates situations where you get 4 Buffalo symbols and need just one more for the major bonus. Your brain interprets that as almost winning. The reality is the 5th symbol has the same probability whether you have 0 Buffalo or 4 Buffalo showing, but the visual presentation makes it feel like you were close. Over 7 months, according to documentation from former hosts who knew the couple, Carol lost $62,000. Most of that loss was on Buffalo and Buffalo Gold. She would have winning sessions occasionally, which reinforced the behavior and made her believe she could recover losses. By the time James needed a specific treatment that insurance only partially covered, they couldn't afford it. A former host who knew the couple said this case made him question the ethics of his job. I watched it happen in real time, he reportedly said. I knew she was spiraling, but we're trained to encourage play, not intervene. The near miss programming is extensively documented. Buffalo's near miss frequency is engineered to keep players engaged despite devastating losses. Former slot directors said there were actual bonuses for floor staff when Buffalo machines exceeded profit targets. The internal nickname for this machine, according to multiple former employees, was the house payment machine because of how reliably it extracted large sums from players who couldn't afford those losses. Let's quickly recap what we've covered, because understanding these 8 machines could genuinely change your relationship with slot gambling. Machine number 1 was Mega Joker with its 99% return in Supermeter mode. Machine number 2 was Bloodsuckers at 98% return. Machine number 3 was 1429, Uncharted Seas at 98.6%. Machine number 4 was Jackpot 6000 at 98.9%. Machine number 5 was Ooh Ah Dracula at 99% with Big Bet activated. Machine number 6 was Starmania at 97.87%. Machine number 7 was Goblin's Cave at 99.32%. Machine number 8 was White Rabbit at 97.77%. Those are the machines with documented high return to player percentages that casinos either hide, place poorly, or quietly remove when informed players discover them. But here's the reality I need you to understand. Most of these machines are nearly impossible to find, and even when you find them, you need to play them correctly to access the high return percentages. Mega Joker requires staying in Supermeter mode. Jackpot 6000 requires Supermeter mode. Ooh Ah Dracula requires Big Bet activation. These aren't casual games where you can sit down, press buttons, and automatically benefit from favorable mathematics. They require knowledge, they require strategy, they require bankroll management that most recreational players simply don't have. Former employees who shared this information all emphasize the same point. These machines exist, the mathematics are real, but accessing that mathematical advantage requires preparation and discipline that separates informed players from casual gamblers. And here's something else you need to understand about return to player percentages generally. That number represents theoretical return over millions of spins, not your session, not your weekend trip to the casino, not even your year of regular play. The return to player percentage is a mathematical construct that describes long-term probability across sample sizes that individual players will never experience. You could play a 99% return machine for 8 hours and lose your entire bankroll. Because variance, the short-term statistical fluctuation, overwhelmed the theoretical long-term average. Casinos understand this perfectly. They know that even high-return machines will generate profit in the short term through variance. And they know that most players don't have the bankroll depth or emotional discipline to survive long enough for favorable mathematics to manifest. But the real warning I need to give you is about those 2 machines. Casinos love. Wheel of Fortune and Buffalo aren't just low-return games. They're not just volatile slots that happen to have worse mathematics. They're deliberately designed psychological weapons that exploit brand recognition, near-miss programming, bonus round manipulation, and sensory overload to keep you playing past the point of rational decision-making. Former employees didn't just describe these machines as profitable, they described them as predatory. They described watching players lose amounts that destroyed lives, damaged families, eliminated retirement savings, and they described being trained to encourage that play, to offer comps and promotions that kept players engaged with the most profitable machines on the floor. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. When you walk into a casino and see a slot machine in a premium location, prominently displayed, heavily promoted, surrounded by other players and celebration sounds, that machine is there because it makes the casino enormous amounts of money. The placement tells you everything about the mathematics. Casinos are not charitable organizations. They don't showcase games that work in your favor. They don't dedicate premium floor space to machines that underperform profit targets. Every placement decision, every marketing choice, every promotional offer is designed to extract maximum revenue from players. The machines that would actually give you a mathematical advantage are hidden in corners, placed in terrible locations, or removed entirely when informed players discover them. Now, I need to address something important about responsible gambling, because everything I've shared in this video could be misinterpreted as suggesting you can beat slot machines if you just find the right games. You cannot beat slot machines. Even a 99% return to player percentage means the house has a 1% edge. Over sufficient time and sufficient play, that edge will grind away your bankroll. The stories about Michael playing Mega Joker, about David and Michelle playing Ooh Ah Dracula, those are not examples of people who beat the casino. Those are examples of people who temporarily benefited from statistical variance while playing games with favorable long-term mathematics. Eventually, given enough playtime, even the best return percentages will produce net losses for players. Former casino employees who contributed to this research all emphasized that their goal in sharing this information wasn't to help people win at gambling. Their goal was to expose the predatory design of modern slot machines and give players enough knowledge to make informed decisions. If you're going to gamble, if you're going to play slot machines despite understanding the mathematics work against you, then at least avoid the games designed specifically to psychologically manipulate you into extended losing sessions. At least understand which machines have slightly less terrible mathematics. At least recognize when a casino is promoting a game because that game is exceptionally profitable at extracting player money. The gambling industry generates over $100 billion annually in the United States alone. That money doesn't come from casinos losing to players. That money comes from mathematical house edges, grinding away player bankrolls combined with psychological design that keeps people playing past the point of rational decision-making. Every element of modern slot design, from the near-miss programming to the celebration sounds to the bonus round theatrics to the feature buy options, exists to maximize time on device and minimize player awareness of cumulative losses. Understanding which specific machines are worst doesn't change the fundamental reality that all slot machines are designed to take your money. But knowledge at least gives you the power to choose how quickly that happens, and whether you're being actively manipulated by some of the most predatory designs in the industry. If this video has given you information that could save you money or help you make better decisions, hit that subscribe button and consider sharing this with anyone you know who plays slot machines regularly. The casino industry doesn't want this information widely available. They don't want players understanding return to player percentages, recognizing psychological manipulation tactics, or making informed decisions about which games to avoid. Your support helps me continue bringing you information that casinos would prefer stayed hidden.